So the next thing we can do is we can actually try to push a new version of our image back into that registry. So let's go back over to the terminal here and let's clear the screen so you guys can see better. Let's go back into that container file. Now, like I said, what this will do is it bases it on this image and then it adds a couple things and then we're done. Well, what if what we want instead is every time this image gets built, it makes sure that the system is up to date, right? It makes sure that the image has the latest and greatest package set on it. So we can just add a run in here that says DNF, update -y. And what that'll do, of course, is it'll now do DNF updates before it does the install of the HTTPD package. Okay. Now, if we go back to our podman build command and we run it again, what it should do is it'll see that the bulk of this image is the same. It's not going to change that, but it realizes that we added a new command to that container file and it applies that. It did some updates. You see there the things that it updated. And now everything after that line, it's going to run again. So it's going to do the install of Apache and it's going to enable the service and all that. And this is the way I built my container file, because every time I run the CI/CD, I want it to spit out the most up-to-date image that is available to me at the time. All right.
NestD asked in chat that leaning into the update it like a smartphone, over-the-air updates and that kind of stuff. So what we're showing you is just normal networking things. So if you have 5G modems that work on your systems, then you could use those 5G modems for transferring the images and applying them and booting to them. I think where things get a little bit more interesting is if, for example, you're a cruise ship and you need to push out updates from corporate to the cruise ship, and the cruise ship sails away from port mid-download. What happens when it pulls into the next port, right? So with image mode, just the tooling that we have here, you would need to re-kick off that download and try to re-pull the image to the system. There's another product from Red Hat called Rel for the Edge. And Rel for the Edge has a whole bunch of intermittent connectivity assessment, like reconciliation. So that may be a better match for certain things. Behind the scenes, it's also using RPM OS tree and the alternate build trees, like or file system trees, like what Nate has been talking about with image mode. So a lot of the core technological components are shared between the two things. You build Rel for the Edge images a little bit differently currently, although I know that they're working on changing that so that image mode and Rel for the Edge are built in the same way. And then Rel for the Edge comes with all these additional validation and other stuff due to the weirdnesses of Edge that we don't account for with regular image mode, because we're assuming that you have a computer and you know how to manage the computer and you have networking and other stuff that is infrastructure.
All right, so all I did while Scott was talking was do the push, and what that did is it took the new version of the image and pushed it into the registry that we have locally here. And now we can switch back over to our actual image mode system. And this is where we're going to start playing around with that Bootc status that Scott was talking about earlier. Now, to save myself some typing, I'm just going to become root. So first of all, let's do, I'm doing this format equals YAML only because it comes out, I think, a little easier to step through. So what we get here is this YAML output of kind of the status of our Bootc system, right? And we can see here the spec. This tells us what image it's currently running right now, where it got it from, registry, right? Tells us that the boot order is currently the default. I think if we do a rollback, it changes the boot order to rollback. We can look at that once we try to do another rollback. I don't think we're doing another rollback. We can look anyway. This tells us whether there's another image staged or not. So you can see here, it says staged, and it tells us there's nothing staged, right? So that's just means that we're good. booted, it tells us what image that we're booted from. I think if you were to run Bootc on a non-Bootc built system, this is where you would see those differences, right? There'd be nothing in here. It wouldn't say, hey, we've got an image that we're booted from or anything like that. Let's see, anything else good here? Rollback. This tells us whether there's a rollback queued or not, things like that. So, useful things. Now, remember, we pushed an upgrade. We pushed an updated container to our registry. So now if we do that, Bootc, upgrade, that check again, it should tell us, yep, there's totally a new image that we can get as an upgrade, right? So if I did that upgrade again without the check, now it'll pull down that image. And now this time we're going to take a little bit of time. We're going to look at the Bootc status after we've pulled in that image. Things I've done while waiting for computers. Okay, so we've now staged that upgrade. Let's clear the screen here and we'll do that Bootc status again. In fact, Bootc status is kind of neat. If you do the dash format, and there's a couple formats you can bring it out in, it'll give you all the data. But if you take off the format, it'll give you relevant information, which I think is kind of useful, right? So if I had done this before I had staged that upgrade, it would have just said, here's the booted image. But now that I've staged something, it tells me there's a staged image. If I have a rollback queued up, it'll tell me there's a rollback queued up, right? So I think that's handy, but if you ever need the full output, you just do that, extended output there, and it'll give you everything. All right, so we queued the upgrade. Let's reboot and see if our upgrade works. Now, again, this takes a second, rebooting a machine, But yeah, I've had lots of fun conversations with folks around image mode and just kind of the ideas that people start having once they understand what this does and how this works and what options it opens up for you. It's really neat when you see someone's like, wait, I can do that with this? Yes, you can.
And we've actually had like a whole bunch. We've actually been working on this for 15 years, I think.
Yeah. Just like incremental things that have gotten us to this point.
Yeah, because like we have CoreOS, right? Which is a mutable operating system that you update as an image. We did Relatomic, which was similar, but the problem was you got a built image from Red Hat and then you couldn't put anything in it. So that made it very appetizing. It was supposed to be more like an appliance, but when you needed rando Python library, there was no way to get it in the image. We tackled some of that with RPM OS tree and Roll for the Edge. And then we moved into okay, we're going to build it using container files, which now means we can do things like apply all of our container management techniques instead of doing, having to create our own tooling, or like Nesty was asking about compression and layers, and no, we just, the containery things do all that. We don't need to figure that out.
Yeah.
Computers have figured that out for us.
Because there's solved problems in the container world already. Now, that could mean, because of the size of these images, that might mean there's room for improvements there. And I think I heard somebody that's related to this telling me that there's work being done for improvements there. But yeah, so more to come, I suppose. All right, so we've rebooted, and now you can see it is up and running on our latest container. I don't really have a quick and easy way to show you that other than that now it's up to date. I guess if I did there shouldn't be any updates waiting for it now because we just pulled them. Oh, we can't because it isn't registered. Never mind. So anyway, now, see, we had a question about Bootc status, right?
Yep. And then while you're pulling that up, we also get weird questions like, cool, I have a Bootc image. Yay, go me. Now I want to do a DNF update. And it's like, no,
Right.
no.
Yeah.
You are either living the image lifestyle,
Yeah.
or you're living the RPM lifestyle. And
Right.
we don't cross the streams. You either choose to go with this. So oh, there's a new CVE that came out. What do we do? Well, instead of doing DNF update on a package to close and mitigate that CVE, you instead build a new Bootc image, send it to your repository, check it out and apply it to your machines, and then boot into it. And now the CVE is mitigated in your new system.
Yeah, I mean, not just a new image, just an updated image, right? All you're doing is you take your container file, you add in the thing that's going to fix that problem, or maybe in the case where the example I'm running here, where it just has a DNF update built in, maybe you just tell it to build and it gets all the updates, and now that CVE is fixed. The other really cool thing that I've talked through with a couple of customers, and this is one of those aha moments. Let's say the image I'm booted from right now, this is built to my corporate standards, right? But now every environment has these, right? You've got, okay, I've got my corporate standard build, but now I need my corporate standard build as a database server, or now I need my corporate standard build as a web server, or now I need my corporate standard build as a shell server, right? The cool thing about the way this works is if I go, let's see if I can do this quickly. If I go and take this image, right, because that's in my registry. Oops, too many capital letters. If I go back to my container file, and instead of being from the upstream, let's just comment that out for now. Make another from line. Make it from, and we're going off script here, so if something goes horribly wrong. And now let's say like also install, I don't know, MariaDB-server. I'm going off the top of my head here as to what the name of that package is.
I think that's correct.
Right? So now we're going to say, take that corporate standard build and apply MariaDB to it. And then we're going to go back to the Podman build, and this time we're going to call it, I don't know, test bootc MariaDB. And what this is going to do is it's going to build another container image, another bootable container image, and it's going to add in those things that I did. It's going to add in that MariaDB installation.
So my solution to that problem would have been slightly different, Nate. I would have said, build a MariaDB container and run that on top of your Imageoid image.
You could do that. You could.
So now, like, manage your operating system updates and your application updates separately because you've divorced them, having essentially two images for them.
Now, if I make changes to the corporate standard build base image there, then all I have to do is kick off image rebuilds of all of my sub images, and they will inherit that, right? So if I fix a CVE at the top level, and then, you know, I've now scheduled maintenance windows for all of my applications that need to be rebooted to bring in the change. All I have to do is between then and when the reboots are supposed to happen is make sure I've told my CI/CD pipelines or whatever to rebuild all of those sub images, all those images that are based on it, and they'll pull in all the updates, right? This is like usual container workflows. You're right, though. You could run it inside of a container on top of the image mode host. So that could be another option. All right, so now I have to do a push. I call it bootc-MariaDB, right? And that should push that new image up. And then I should be able to do a bootc switch on the other system over here. I just need this to do that with. If I did, and again, off script here, I didn't look up the syntax for bootc switch. I think it's just this, right? So now I'm going to tell it, switch the container that we're running to that MariaDB container.
And actually, before you do this, the reboot, why don't you do a bootc status so we can see the,
sure.
This is what's staged.
Okay, now if we do, let's clear the screen, sudo bootc status. Now it tells us not only is there a booted image, there's a rollback image, because remember we already did updates to this thing once, and there's a staged image. So now if I just reboot the system, let's just do reboot, just less typing.
Oh, now the real trick is, did we get all the run commands right to actually start on MariaDB automatically on boot?
I may have done enough MariaDB builds that I got them out of memory. I'm not sure. Oh, there it is. Oh, MariaDB's failed. Oh, well, we haven't configured it or anything. So, but it did try to start it. Yeah, it failed to start. Directory var log MariaDB does not exist. Okay, so that's, yeah. We needed to do more to make sure that MariaDB would come up. And that's probably because var already existed. And like we said before, var does not get overwritten with a new container deployment, with a new image deployment. So because var log MariaDB did not exist when we built the initial container, then it didn't get created when we pulled in the new image. So that's probably why that failed. Does that make sense? Am I just speaking weirdness here?
Could you just do an mkdir var log MariaDB? Although it's probably going to like send us down a trail of a lot of things aren't there. Yeah, it's going to send us down a trail.
There's something else, I'm sure.
What else we got?
That's actually the end of my demo. I just figured we could poke around.